Remember to subscribe and share. In today's podcast, we are going to the theatre. Shadowboxing, written by James Gaddas, is a powerful and raw solo performance that delves into the themes of masculinity, identity, and self-acceptance. Presented by Theatre Works and Feet First Collective, the play follows Flynn, a boxer grappling with his sexuality and the shadow of his father's failed boxing career. And waiting to talk to me is the lead actor, Samuel Addison, and the director of Shadowboxing, Teresa Izzard. Guys, welcome to Noel Anderson's 15 Minutes of Fame. How you going?
Thanks for having us, Noel.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
I was thinking, how will I start this interview? And I wasn't quite sure, but I do have something to tell you. This is the first threesome that I've been involved with on this podcast. This is
Happy to be a first.
Just on the podcast, though. That's what I'm hearing from that.
Well, you know, it's sort of a momentous occasion for me. So welcome. Now, of course, we're here to talk about shadowboxing, and I might go with Teresa first of all. Tell us a little bit about the play and how you came about, doing it, or directing it, I should say.
Feet First Collective. This is our 10th year of making independent theatre. This is the only time that I haven't been the person to pick the play. So our LGBTQIA plus advisor on this piece is Donald Woodburn, and he's a founding member of the company. And he had been advocating for us to have some more LGBTQIA plus content to add to our stable of powerful, edgy, bold works. And so he actually brought it to me. I had been looking for a piece, looking for something for Sam to do, and Donald said, what about this one? So he actually proposed Sam and he proposed the piece. So this is actually his instigation. And of course, I looked at it and I said, I have no idea how I'm going to make this happen. And that made me excited because I like to pick up pieces that I know will challenge me. And Sam read it, and I believe he was also excited by that challenge, Sam?
Yeah, it was my first potential doing a solo production, which is something I'd seen other people do and had always wanted to challenge myself doing. And also the piece itself is just incredibly well written, incredibly powerful piece.
And Sam, when you first sat down and read the piece, what was the first thing you took away from it?
I wasn't fit enough was the first thing that popped into my head. It's a very physical piece. And while I sort of specialized because of all my work with T in physical theatre, it was another step up. But the other thing was that it was a piece that was about LGBTQIA representation, but that wasn't all there was to it. It was also about somebody discovering themselves and pushing themselves and building a life and fighting against struggle that was in relation to the LGBTQIA struggle, but was also relatable to anyone, which I think is something that was important for me to be able to bring something to the role. It was a challenge to be able to go, hey, am I the right person to do this? And then having Donald go, you're the right person. It should be you. It needs to be brought to a wider audience. And having the piece be about more than just that struggle with that identity and about a greater struggle allowed me to find some connection to it that I could go, okay, I can relate to this. I can bring something to all of it.
The play was originally commissioned by David Field, the Australian actor, David Field, because his father was a boxer. Is that correct?
David Field asked James Gaddas to write like a one-person show for him because his father was a boxer, and it was written in the very late 80s and first produced early 90s in Australia. Obviously, the LGBTQIA plus storyline was quite potent at the time. That's all we know from the Genesis story from James's perspective at the moment. But I can reach out to him because he now follows us on Instagram. His daughter's coming to see the show in Melbourne.
We can all follow him now after this. We all finish this interview and follow him as well.
I was going to say, it's an interesting position as a writer to be put in, because I think it's not really a spoiler. It's sort of the first 5 minutes of the show. You do find out that Flynn, the character's boxing father is a terrible boxer. Absolutely shocking. So I don't know whether David Field's father was a good boxer, but James Gaddas obviously took some decisions there to make him a very bad boxer in the show.
If I even attempted to box, I would be absolutely hideous. So I would say he's probably definitely better than me, maybe better than Teresa, maybe not better than you now that you've obviously worked out for the production. You obviously got fit for it, did you?
Okay, I've been doing a bit of a health kick since COVID because I did a show with Teresa at university called Metamorphosis, where I played a giant bug man and had to climb around on a cage. And then I sort of kept it up and got really into fitness. But then when the show came around the first time, I got quite fit for it. And then when we got to Perth, I got down to 88 kilos. But when I found out it was in fact happening again, I've moved over to Sydney and I was sitting at 98 kilos. So I've gone on a really big kick. I'm down this morning to 92.8.
Oh, wow.
I've lost
clap.
a fair bit, but I've been going quite hard. We did boxing training with a group called Endorphin in Perth. My current gym has some boxing classes. I'm going to one tonight, so getting back into it. And then in Melbourne, we have lined up to do some more group boxing classes at a proper boxing gym. And a lot of that is actually just less about me being fit and more about me looking like I know what the hell I'm doing. It's very embarrassing when a boxer comes to your show and they go, "Why are you doing that? That's not right." So you want to make sure that you're moving the right way, you look the part, and also having an understanding of what that character would go through every single day, just beating out those rhythms, beating out that movement, having it in the body.
One of the things that did make me go, that's interesting, was when I saw that, Teresa, you were directing, because on the initial blurb of the play, which I believe I did see at the Stables Theatre, this is giving away my age.
Oh, yeah.
So long ago. So I think I have seen the play. I say I think because I can vaguely remember it, but it's such a masculine piece, isn't it? But a woman dealing with these kind of issues, particularly things like suicide and the masculinity in issues and the physicality of the piece as well. Why did you think you were the right person to direct it?
I think there's 2 or 3 big reasons. So one, this character Flynn, who is like incredibly masculine and almost brutish and powerful, has this lightness within him, this like if we all have the anima and the animus and we all have masculine energies and feminine energies and there's a spectrum, then he is attempting to bring something which is opposing in. There is the softness within him that he's desiring. He wants to, again, we don't want to give too many spoilers, but he's not super happy with his life as a boxer all the time. There are other things he wants to do, right? Come and find out if well, they are. But essentially, no, he wants to be in more of the softer side of a relationship. He wants to become more artistic. He would like to be more like a dancer than a boxer. He wants to be aesthetically pleasing versus like, so there's this massive tension in him. The second thing is that Sam and I have a long-standing relationship as collaborators. And so therefore, and he's mentioned a little bit about our journey. Like, so part of that journey, I'm the right person to push him, to take him to this, to get him there in collaboration with Donald as well. And then the third thing I would say is that this time around, there's 4. So the third thing is about outsider status. The macro idea is about outsiders. It's like, you have to ask yourself, why me? And why am I telling this story? I know exactly why I'm telling this story because I have been in that ring. I may not have looked like a boxer. I may not be fighting the same demons, but I've absolutely done that fight. So I am the right person to direct this show because I know what it's like to feel like I'm not in the norm. And then the fourth thing is that it's about gender-based violence to a certain extent. And we're looking at that a little bit more this time around. This is a reimagined version of this show. We've done it twice before, but this time we've sharpened the angle that we're looking at. And we're looking a lot at like the roots of male violence. Where does it come from? We're looking at Flynn's essential experiences as a child, exploring his life as an adult and finding violence in there. Now, it's not shown in this piece towards a woman, but there's a lot of gender-based violence in the world. And it's something that I'm quite passionate about. Whilst I haven't experienced like a massive spectrum of this, I have had men be violent to me. I have some incredible, amazing men in my life, including Sam, but I also know that there's a problem out there. And so together we want to open those conversations. So there's 4 reasons why I should direct the play. Boom.
Okay. and Sam, where do you think male violence comes from? Because we're seeing on the news today, lots of kids in particular, breaking into people's homes, walking in with machetes. Why do you think young men today are taking up knives and being unruly in a way that I don't think they were years ago?
I think there's a really, really long and complicated answer there.
Just the short one.
There's a couple of short ones. First of all, I'm not convinced that much has changed in terms of how much is out there. I think it's just how much we're seeing. I think it's the same sort of idea as that post 9/11 world. Suddenly everyone's aware of all the horrors in the world. We're in the middle of an interesting shift around people's awareness of what is identity and culture wars versus what's class warfare, and news cycles are, pulling up more and more stuff. We're seeing a lot of pushback on sort of patriarchal powers, and currently male-dominated areas and viewpoints have risen up quite a lot in the wake of Andrew Tate and this response to gender politics. Well, we've had a big feminist push, and then there's a big pushback on masculine energies, particularly online. Whenever a dominant group loses some sense of power, there's always pushback, and there's always going to be the extreme ends. So in an environment where women are really pushing for voices, the Me Too movement, all of this, you also have that bunch of men who take personal offense, who get angry. We're also in a very unstable political and economic world. So there's a lot of very, very disenfranchised young men, and this is where the main thing gets to. Men aren't taught how to deal with their anger. I struggle with it. I have quite severe ADHD. I grew up with aggression issues. I did get support for them. It's still really hard sometimes. And I think anyone can be angry. I think a lot of women have a lot of rage as well. But young boys are still shown that physical outbursts are not extremely inappropriate. And so what you see is a bunch of young men who not shown appropriate ways to deal with things, or learn how to deal with things from fathers who are maybe didn't learn from their fathers, or who are maybe absent, or are just actually maybe really aggressive themselves when they shouldn't be. They learn those behaviors and then take them out into the world. Not a spoiler, the first 5 minutes of the play, Flynn gets bullied by kids in his class whose dads have said mean, horrible things, and these boys think that it's okay to get aggressive and violent with Flynn.
Sorry, and he's outed in the play, isn't he?
Yes.
I mean, yes, yeah. So that's kind of the key thing, is that Flynn is not in control of his choices around what happens to him, and at every step of the play really is forced to take matters into his own hands. One of the only ways humans have the capability to do that is through our own power. If you're a big tough guy, particularly in an ultra-violent industry like boxing, your power is your fists. When society lets you down, you don't have societal power, you have physical power. And I think that's a big part of why male violence is on the rise, particularly amongst young men. There's no pathways forwards for a lot of people.
This play was written in, I think, 1989. Just thinking of the gay theme through it, do you think much has changed since the play was written? In my mind, there's been a big acceptance, particularly in media and particularly in streaming. We're seeing lots of TV shows with gay characters, gender diverse characters. I'm wondering, do you think the play is still completely relevant?
In our research for this, one of the big things that we found is that there was the first gay boxer came out in 2012.
Orlando Cruz. Yeah.
A very diversifying at the time, event, obviously, but also dividing. So, he's become very popular now. People show pride flags when he comes out and stuff. But at the time, it was a big deal. And it's really interesting that boxing was one of these sports that did that quite comparatively early. But Aussie football, I mean, I don't follow AFL super well, but it's not super common. You're not seeing in a lot of the more big team-based sports. It's not like you see on the news, gay football player, gay soccer player, gay rugby player. It's not super accepted. I mean, I played AFL till I was 13. I left because of bullying. People in those teams are horrible. It's a really hyper-masculine area. If you don't think you're hot shit, get the fuck out, is basically the vibe. And I don't think that has changed as much. But also artists and media is an industry driven by heavily artistic and creative people who tend to be, as T sort of used earlier, maybe not outsiders, but people who are open to new things. It's part of our job. You have to be open to experiences and people, and you've got to be willing to accept stuff because you have to explore it. So it doesn't surprise me that in our media, we are seeing a big push for it, because it's also those people who want to push change in the world. But those deep-seated, particularly country sporting groups are still a holdout of real hyper-masculine ideas. I have a family friends who grew up in country WA, and like probably 5 years ago, I had to pull up the guy who's only 2 years younger than me on some homophobic language. And I literally just said, you pull your head in. You say that in a club or in a bar at Perth, someone's going to take you outside and put you in your place. That language is still really there in particularly smaller communities and sporting communities. Like, it hasn't gone away.
It's not just the smaller communities. So we have Orlando Cruise coming out in 2012, but it's 10 years later before a boxer in the UK is openly gay. 2022, Mike Turner. And he says, I want to show the homophobic bullies not to underestimate a gay man. In 2023, the ABC reported that male sports are the last closet. They used that quote. I was also going to say, what's that TV show, Sam, the one that we
Ted
both
Lasso?
enjoyed? In Ted Lasso, you have a gay character who can tell eventually his teammates, but is still not openly gay. So you have these very male sports. And in fact, okay, we have a couple of examples in boxing, but we don't know what the true scale is. And I would say that whilst some things have changed, and yes, we do have things like Heartbreak High and Heartstopper, and we have,
Invisible Boys was just on Stan, which is a very good
Invisible,
series.
So there's
WA represent.
So one of the aims of this show is to have a diverse audience. In the Sydney season, the original season, we had a gay couple who'd been there in the 90s who said this was a very validating experience. But we also had a young gay guy saying how empowering it was for him to see that story told on stage, a queer rage. And we've had with people saying there's this queerness and masculinity brought together in a way that they've never seen before on stage. We're doing something with it which is very, very now, even though the piece was written then. So I would say, yes, it's still relevant.
And from my memory of the play, I do remember not every moment of it is heavy. There's some humor and there's a lot of laughter in it as well at the beginning. That's from my memory of back whenever it was. I said I saw it back at the stables.
1994, I think.
Why should people come and see shadow boxing, Sam?
Look, as you kind of said, there's a lot of comedy, there's a lot of lightness. He is, in his own way, triumphant at the end of this piece. It's fun, it's energetic. If your dad likes boxing movies, bring him along. This is the modern Rocky. It's that sort of same punchy energy. A lot of it really is about a boxer trying to succeed, and that is just good drama to watch.
And Teresa, what do you think?
If you want to go to the gym and not have to do any work, just come and watch Sam for 55 minutes because he works out for you. He gets very sweaty. He does a lot of work. It's a roller coaster ride of physicality. So come watch it for that.
Absolutely.
Athleticism.
When is it on? Where is it on?
It's at TheatreWorks, Explosive Factory. It's the preview, I think, is the 14th of May. The season is 15th to the 24th.
Guys, we've done it. I only have one thing left to say at this point of time. Do you know what that is? You're both shaking your head. I'll tell you what it is.
Great.
Samuel Addison, Teresa Izzard, this has been your 15 Minutes of Fame.
Thank you, Noel.
Thank you.
Noel Anderson's 15 Minutes of Fame. Remember to subscribe and share. Did this originate in Perth?
The play originated in Sydney. We did it first, actually, in Sydney. Yeah.
Okay, so you've done. So you've done Sydney, Perth, and now Melbourne.
And then we're doing Perth again. Sydney again.
Again.
We're doing it at Flight Path in October.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's great.